upstate format.
Okay.
Just what's your name? Then what year you going to GCU? Local there.
Sweet. My name is Braden Shinagawa, also known as Shiggy. Really came, I guess, to GCU desiring deeper relationship with the Lord, and figuring out what that looked like was kind of a huge thing for me. My freshman year of college, I was in a triple occupancy dorm with Michael Bloom. And so we had met like over Instagram, got plugged in, and then we're like, we're going to do this whole roommate thing. Um, and then kind of as we got plugged into school, I had started hanging out with a different group of people, all that sorts of stuff. And then within Michael's first group was a buddy that I'd been really close with, Ethan, who we'd gone to high school with. I mean, we'd known each other since kindergarten, and kind of been in the same friend group in high school, been on the same floor like Hansa mentioned, along with Ethan and Mike and all those guys. And then Ethan had been dating this girl, and they're engaged now at this point. And then his girlfriend at the time was my girlfriend's best friend, or they were roommates. And so all the time we'd hang out, and I'd hear about Ethan going through this group and all these fun different things, and all the different things that they were walking through, and getting to watch one of my best friends walk through change firsthand and be like, I think I want that for myself. So he'd come back from my group or came back from the Freedom Retreat, and I just grill him with questions. I was like, what was this like? What was this like? Are you gonna lead a group by chance? Because if you are, like, I'd really love to be a part of it. And so that second semester of my freshman year, I ended up getting plugged in with him and Isaac, to be a part of a group. And so it was even more people from our floor, that got to be a part of that group. And just remember walking through it and like, wow, this is crazy. Getting to learn about things and understand new perspectives and see the Lord and what relationship with the Lord looked like in ways that I had never considered before. I mean, obviously, had grown up as a Christian, grown up in the church, had pursued the Lord for quite some time, but had never really recognized what that meant for my life and kind of the physical implications of that and how my life was supposed to look different because of it. So I guess that's kind of how I got plugged in a long-winded answer. I've been a part of 3 groups. This is my 3rd retreat. The second group that I led was actually with Michael. He like texted our boys chat and was like, hey, I'm gonna lead a DMU group. Like, does anybody want to lead with me? And like before anybody else had the chance to like text and say something, I was like, yeah, I'm in. Like, let's lead this. And so we got to lead that second group together, which is really cool. But Michael had been through it several times at that point, led several groups, and this was my redshirt freshman year leading. So I was like, what am I doing? Like, I just kind of would show up and listen to Michael and that sorts of stuff. And then there had been people in the group that had different experiences and encounters and stuff of that sort, and that I had never dealt with before. And I'm like, how do I talk to this? Like, these are things that I've never physically or spiritually or, sexually dealt with. Like, how do I go about giving them advice? And it was really cool because there was so much kind of turmoil in my own heart of like, how am I even competent enough to be leading this group of people? But I think through that, the Lord showed me like, you don't have to have gone through all these things to be a good leader. You just need to be able to point them to me. And so it was like, you know what? I haven't been through a lot of these things, but this is what the Lord has showed me and the way that He's helped me deal with this thing. And I think it might be applicable, to kind of how you're going through this. And I guess to mention as well, I lead high school young life. And so I had this full other ministry that was my focus, spending a lot of time each week, leading and planning clubs and hanging out with students and all this other stuff. And so a lot of times this first group felt like kind of a second thing, or I was cutting it short sometimes, but the Lord used it and worked in ways that I couldn't have expected. And then just got to lead my 3rd group, even with all the craziness of young life and stuff of that sort. And it was so incredible to see how fruitful it was and what the Lord, chose to do through it. My first group and my first steps retreat was really interesting because I had been put in a group where I knew about 7 of the 8 people that were in the group, and the one person that I didn't know was the person that I ended up getting partnered with as my accountability partner for the entire group. And I was like, all right, like, this guy's cool. Like, let's figure this out. And so it was really cool because I started the group barely. I mean, I knew his name, and that was about it. And over the course of this week, it was like okay, I'm gonna tell this stranger that I've hardly told. Like there's stuff that I'm gonna tell this stranger that I've never told anybody else, and we're just gonna roll with it. And so it was getting to talk and figure out what accountability looked like. It was rough to begin with. It was like, hey, I just messed up. I'm gonna shoot you a text, that sort of thing. And then as time progressed, it was like, okay, now we're grabbing coffee and we're talking and we're forming a friendship. And I still talk to him today and still get to talk about life and all the different challenges and stuff of that sort. But then to fast forward, I guess, to the retreat, it was like, okay, I've already told you a lot. And now even more is about to come up. Are you sure you're comfortable like listening to all this? And it was like that, I guess, passage went both ways to where I got to listen to a ton of things that he'd been through and walked through. And then I got to kind of reciprocate that and tell him a bunch of different things that I had been through and walked through. And it was so cool because we got so much, like, over the course of, 8, 9, 10 weeks, got closer than I had ever been with some of the people that I would have considered my closest friends. And I don't think any of that would have been possible without the structure and the honesty that is necessitated through Dangerous Men. The biggest challenge that I had had while leading was when I was in this group with Michael. Oftentimes felt incompetent as a leader because it had been my first time. And then a lot of the members of my group had been dealing with things that I had never dealt with. And so I was like, what does instructing them and leading them look like when I first off feel incompetent and that sorts of thing? And at that time had been in a really good place with the Lord in a lot of different areas. And so didn't feel like I had tangible stuff to come and present. And it felt like because maybe I hadn't been messing up or struggling with certain things at that time, that the input and things that I had to offer to them in terms of wisdom held any weight, which was just absolutely a lie from the devil. And so it was really cool that kind of over the process of that group, I got to deal with that challenge as a leader and develop myself as a leader in ways that I don't think that I would have otherwise. The biggest way that Dangerous Men has impacted my faith has been solidifying it. I think throughout middle school and high school, I would go through waves with my relationship with the Lord, and it really just depended on how I was doing in life or the amount of time that I had to go to church or things of that sort. But I was at a point where, if I didn't go to church for a little bit, then my relationship with the Lord was non-existent. It just didn't exist in the slightest. And so I think if that things had continued on a trend that way, I would have reached a point where, I might have gone to college, got plugged in with the wrong crowd, and my life would have looked drastically different. I would, be living in my sin and living for the world, and living for things that weren't of God. But I got plugged in and I learned what it looked like to confess my sins and talk about challenges and struggles and things that I had been through that I'd been harboring and keeping inside. And I think it solidified my faith in the way to where it's like, this is true. This is what I want to do for the rest of the life. My life with the Lord looks infinitely different and more prosperous and more fruitful than if I hadn't been living a life for the Lord. But it's like I'd been through church and I'd been through all these things that had talked about, oh, the Lord's so good. And this is what living with him can look like and all that sorts of stuff. But it didn't give me the tangible effects and practices and ways about fighting spiritually and fighting emotionally and fighting physically and doing all of that kind of in tandem with growing my faith. I don't think that if I had gotten those tangible tools that I would be in a place with my faith where I am now, where I feel like I can lead groups well and I can lead other individuals well, and where I know that I've been empowered to do so by God, and I can feel kind of his presence in my own leadership. The growth of Dangerous Men at GCU has been a model of what good discipleship should look like. It should be, I'm going to lead a group of people, and then the group that I lead is going to go and lead other people. And then the group that they lead is going to go and lead other people. And so it starts with 1, and then it grows into 2, and then it grows into 4, and then it grows into 8, and then it grows into 16, and it just keeps going from there. And so like when I first started, it was a group of, I don't know, like 10 or 12 individuals. And then even the second semester I went, it was like 20 to 25. And then missed the winter retreat that next year and went the following year, and it was like 45. And then now we're here and it's like 60, 70 people just at the retreat alone. Whereas the groups, walking through Dangerous Men and the 8 chapters as even more. Like I had, roommates, people that I live with that went through the book gave their testimonies, got to talk about all these different things and experience freedom, but then just weren't able to make it to the retreat and do that sorts of stuff. And so it's like, it's been really, really cool to watch. And I think one of the things that Dangerous Men does so well is like GCU has a lot of people who would call themselves Christian, who believe in what the Bible says is true, but kind of like in a similar place that I was, like didn't put that into practice. It was like, I believe, I know what it's true, but I'm not necessarily acting on it. And it's been really cool to watch people like take a huge jump in their faith and solidify a faith that, will kind of travel with them and change the trajectory of the entire rest of their lives. I get just excited thinking about the fact that, this is where we are now in 3 years. Like, what's the Lord going to do with the next, 5 to 10? I can only imagine like the craziness of what that's going to look like. And I'm just excited that I get to bear witness to it. And I get to watch other people come to know the Lord in a deeper way. So it's really cool to see where it's at, but I can't wait to see where it goes. The second that I got plugged in to that second group, basically the entirety of who I hung out with at school changed, which it wasn't anything, the people that I'd been previously hanging out with was bad in any way, shape, or form, but it was like, okay, these guys are pursuing the Lord in ways that I haven't seen people pursue the Lord before, and I want to be a part of that. And so it's like we've got this collective group of 10, 11, 12 of us that do life regularly. With GCU 2, we've got like we had apartments last year and it was 4 of us in one and 4 of us in the other, and it's like we literally lived a floor apart and got to do life so closely with each other and have formed relationships that I have zero doubts like these people will be at my funeral one day, which might be like slightly morbid, but like I know that they're gonna be lifelong friends, and I know that once we get up to heaven, we're gonna be hanging out and chatting about DMU 70 years ago and what it looked like. And like this community has been incredible and it's encouraging, and they hold me accountable, and we challenge each other. We're not afraid to call each other out on, stuff like, dude, you've been believing some lies. Like let's get you straight. And to think that that is the community that was fostered because of DMU, and that I got to be a part of that, and that that's going to be with me for the rest of my life is it's irreplaceable, to say the least. Knowing that I've been able to experience such incredible community means that I know it's possible for other people. And so it's like, how do I go about leading groups and getting them to form friendships with each other that are going to last a long time? Like even the guy that I went through with my freshman year, like is still someone I keep in contact with, on a fairly regular basis. And it's like, we spent a couple weeks together and, see each other every here and there now. But like, I know that these relationships are important and are going to go on for a long time. And I want other people to not only experience the glory and goodness of God, but experience what like fellowship and community within that looks like.